Hi, Beth.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. I've been doing sort of conversations with artists as part of the AOH Video Conversation series. And this month, we've been kind of focusing on New Grounds project, which has been going on last 3 years in partnershiping with the AOH. And this year we're collaborating with Gallery Looking. So it would be nice to hear some of the concepts, ideas, and the planning behind this year's program. So shall we start with the theme of the exhibition, what we've been working and why we choose that concept and theme?
Yeah, so the idea was, the sort of title is Body, Nobody. So the idea was to try and kind of test out works in a space where, there's kind of, if there's a dialogue or a difference between being in a space and seeing objects and having that embodied sense of spectatorship, or if you're in a space but you're transported somewhere else to like a virtual or digital space, and if there's any correlation between those or any differences, or it's just really about how people experience different spaces, so physical versus digital, really.
Yeah, we were kind of planning the hybrid exhibition way before virus and lockdown conversation. So it's just kind of good combination to have that conversation now in terms of body, nobody, and body in the means of the body of work, or the body as human body, as the body of audience, the body of artist, and we were just kind of interested with these concepts.
And then removing the body altogether, so a digital space where there is no physical presence there, and what are the implications of that? There's the whole thing is, does digital bring us closer together because we can connect from all over the world, or does digital push us further apart because we stop connecting in the physical reality because we're relying on digital instead?
Yeah, and it's quite interesting to talk about that now, particularly because most of our connection is digital. It's not as physical as it used to be. So shall we talk about the artists, how we connect with artists, how we selected, and what was the process? Some of the collective's New Grounds members that we worked together, some of the members were, saying members a little bit difficult because it's not as works as a classic collective, traditional collective concept is just people comes and goes, and we sort of connect with some ideas. And the New Grounds generally works with the not commissioning artists or not particularly interested in new body of work, but the work was being done before, and just kind of bringing back them together to think about these new concepts and what they mean within that different themes and ideas. So the artists, sometimes it's a selection, sometimes it's almost like a word of mouth, and sometimes it's just the artists that we know, you and me, and closely, and then we think their work or the way they work is connected with the theme we're working.
It's an interesting thing to curate as well, a collective that has such different works. So it's, at the very beginning, I remember when we were discussing which artists to choose or what theme, and we kind of came up with something that would bring all these artists together who work in very different ways, some photographic, some VR, some performance, and what kind of conversation would bind these artists together. So it's been an interesting kind of challenge of seeing how their work fits, and where we can go from there and stuff. Because one of the things I quite liked as well about this whole sort of digital versus physical is, even if someone's viewing a digital artwork or engaging with a VR artwork, they have to physically come to the exhibition space to engage in this way. So Kate Shields, for example, will have an object that has some kind of VR element, but you have to be in the physical gallery space to see that, even though it's transporting you to a kind of digital world. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how these works come together, or how they don't. You know, that might be another thing, they don't come together and they clash. So that's, you know, it kind of answers a few questions there about the existence of the physical and digital together. So it will be a good process once we get it all in there to see how it's all going to work. I think because we've been so separate for all this time as well, we haven't been able to, you know, experiment with how it will look or how it will go together. So it'll be interesting when we unite all the artists finally.
Yeah. So we also started the process of the programming quite early, and we had our first workshop was it last weekend or week before? I think it was the week before, beginning of September. And we just wanted to do that beforehand while the things are not getting too busy, because sometimes during the festival period, everything is just happening at the same time. So we wanted to do that a little bit separately. So we had a workshop with David Shrigley, focuses on storytelling. And so maybe we can talk a bit about that as well.
Yeah, that was really good. I think one of the really interesting points that David Shrigley kind of made was how he works quite mechanically, and how he sort of says to himself, every day I'm going to draw X amount of drawings, and sticks to that, and every single day he draws X amount of drawings, and whether they're any good or not, he said, you know, he finds out at the time, but that was his process for creating work. I think it's quite interesting for some of the artists who especially sort of who are struggling to figure out how to present their work. I think they hadn't thought that they could just do it and see how it goes and not worry about the final outcome and just get into the process. So that was a really quite a poignant thing he said. I think a lot of people, you know, really took a lot away from that workshop. And it was just nice to get the perspective of, you know, a really successful professional artist, to talk to artists who are very early on in their careers, and, you know, how to sort of navigate themselves as professional artists and promote their work and things.
Yeah. So maybe we can next talk about again, you were just talking about how the exhibition will be curated, and it's quite interesting to think about doing an exhibition in you know, with the COVID issues and what's going on with the pandemic and how we operate around it. So maybe we'll talk about how we will create the exhibition, and what sort of space we will use, and what people can expect from us.
And I think it's still very important for me as a curator to have a physical space. So even if it comes to it and we're all in lockdown again, and, you know, we can't have people sharing a space, even if it just comes, you know, we can have one in, one out kind of situation, I'd still quite like to retain that, because, you know, we've been so separated from the physical, and so, you know, embedded in the digital lately. It'd be really nice to kind of get out there and see something, if people feel safe. And, you know, we'll take all the precautions, we'll have book time slots, so, you know, people won't cross over and things. So, but yeah, the goal is to get something physical out there, definitely. And I think, in my mind, as someone who kind of finds that physical element quite important, I'd rather, you know, that's why the gallery's been closed the whole time, not having digital exhibitions, because I prefer to keep it in the real, as it were, rather than online. I prefer things to be postponed rather than, you know, put on an online space that doesn't give enough respect to the work, maybe.
Yeah, you're right, because it is quite an interesting thing, because whoever is coming to gallery in a real space, they audience, and when everything becomes in a digital space, they become almost users. So there's completely different idea of what we expect from public, if we're doing a sort of public programming. And also our exhibition, that's the reason we were kind of experimenting on the idea of having a physical space and what that digital space would look like, without losing the quality and the meaning of the artworks, because if they become digital, there is almost a big danger of they become only a content. So how we can overcome from that, and how actually the artworks still holds its meaning through different platforms.
Yeah, I say another interesting thing, maybe if we're doing one in, one out, is the experience of being like a solo spectator in an exhibition. Because part of the thing I'm really interested in with spectators is it's normally more than one person. So while you're looking at the artwork, you're aware of your physical presence in the space. You're also aware of other bodies looking around you. So you're aware that people are looking at artworks, but they also might be looking at you looking at artworks, and how people think they have to behave in galleries. You know, some people think it's quiet, some people think it's a conversation. So all of a sudden, if that's taken away and you're on your own in this quiet space in a gallery, does it become more reflective? Does it become more challenging because you can't talk about your feelings about it? Or, you know, is it a better experience, a worse one? It'll be interesting to find out what people think as solo spectators, because, you know, it's rare that we get opportunities to do that.
Well, I'm very much so looking forward to it.
Yeah. And fingers crossed for the good weather and not being cold.
Yeah.